All right. Wait for the. There we go. Wow, that was fast. Welcome to Paranormal the New Normal. On this week's episode, I have Nina Roberts, a medium, spiritual tutor, and author. And I am excited to hear what she has to tell us about her 40 years of being in the supernatural world, which 40 years. You don't hear that often. I know I haven't had anybody in the show that's been doing it that long, so I am honored. Nina, how you doing today?
Hi, Jeremy. It's great to be here. And as you can tell from my accent, I'm from England. And for time difference, it's 11:15 at night here. So it's not,
Yeah, thankfully you said you're a night owl regardless, so
I am a night owl.
other,
So,
otherwise I would have had to have you on way earlier in the day for my time zone, which I've done before, but always results in me getting off work super early. So
never mind. So, mediumship to me is an umbrella cover that says we talk with dead people that aren't dead. They've just got no body. Now, my spiritual journey, if you like, it started at a very, very young age in that I used to see things and hear things and say things that got me in trouble when I was like 4 or 5 years old because I'd know things I couldn't know. So that was quite amusing.
I'm sure.
Uh, when I was 13, my mum's piano started playing on its own. And at the time, we had a Jack Russell dog that was, you open the door and that dog ran. She had no road sense. Well, this piano played and it was quite freaky because it started off like tinkle, tinkle, tinkle on the piano. We had two rooms. So I was in one room, piano was in the other. And I heard it and I thought, oh, it's next door neighbour's piano, thin walls. And then it carried on a bit more and went tinkle, tinkle, tinkle a bit louder. Now the dog's hackles are going up. I'm on the house on my own, 13 years old. I open the door and it stops. The piano lid's down and I'm thinking, there's got to be a mouse or something in the piano walking on the keys. I sit down again. Again, it's going tinkle, 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 even louder. So the dog's going really freaking out now, which is freaking me out. I open the door and it stops. And I'm sitting there, 13 years old, trying to get a logical reason for this piano. Then it goes again on the hard keys. Bang, bang, bang. I opened the door, it didn't stop. So I picked the dog up and threw it in the room, and the dog ran out. So I grabbed the dog's lead, grabbed my shoes, and me and the dog ran out the house. Okay. Now, the dog wouldn't leave my side, and normally if you open that door, that dog was gone. She wouldn't leave my side. I knew my mum was at the local shop, so I walked round to meet my mum, and I told her what happened. And she believed me, because what I didn't know at the time, my mum had an aunt and my mum's cousin. The aunt at the time, she must have been in the 70s, she was a medium. And her daughter, my mum's cousin, was a healer. My aunt had told my mum from when I was born that I would be a medium and I was here to work with spirit. I knew nothing of this. I was 13. So all these weird, wonderful things that happened over the years, such as I'd go to bed with my door locked and bolted, and I'd get up in the morning, the room would be tidy, and the light would be off. I think I wish spirit would still do that now because nobody could have got in the room. 101 little things when I was younger, but I paid no attention because I didn't know they were different. So after that incident with the piano, and I found out my aunt was a medium and her daughter was a healer, my aunt said to spirit to leave me alone till I was 16. But also at that time, weirdly, I got a fascination with serial killers of all things. But it wasn't about the gory side, it was the psychology of how a human being could do that to other human beings. I've always been interested in psychology of human nature and animals, things like that. It's always fascinated me. So I read a lot about serial killers, which absolutely freaked my mum and dad out. So my 16th birthday comes around, and I showed no interest in spiritual stuff whatsoever, and I got given 2 packs of tarot cards. Also, because I was a very rebellious young lady. So I was down at the local pub in England, and I took my tarot cards down, and I used to do readings for a pint,
That's awesome.
which was brilliant. Because I was 16 and legal age in England, you can't drink till you're 18. But I have to say, on my 18th birthday, the landlord bought me a beer for being legal. But we had lots of that over here. Anyway, so as we carry on, from 16, things really started to take off. But life experiences, which I won't go into because they're very personal. But the two major things that happened at that time is my dad died a week after my 18th birthday, which was also 2 days after Christmas Day. And then on my 21st birthday, my fiance had proposed to me a week earlier, died in a motorbike accident. So those are two really major traumatic life events. And both of those events made me go, what's out there? What's going on? So my two aunts, I'd got a lot more involved with them. The elder one was very silently guiding me. She died when I was about 19, but she left me her jewellery, which was all crystals, which at the time I knew nothing about. And then my other aunt, who was the healer, she carried on guiding me and got me to go to what we've got spiritualist churches over here. And said, you need to learn about this. You can't just play at it. So it was very, very interesting. For those who know anything about healing in England, going back to when my aunt would have been young, it was illegal to be a medium in England. We were covered by the Witchcraft Act.
Yep.
And during World War II, when my aunt was a medium, you had to do it in private and secret. It was very, very dangerous back then. And there was a gentleman here I've heard of, Harry Edwards, who started off spiritual healing in the UK. And my aunt was friends of his, and they used to go to seances at his house. And my aunt, the daughter who was the healer, she got taught healing by him. And she was an amazing healer, absolutely amazing. So that was the background I'd come from. Luckily, I've also come from a family who were very open-minded. Though there was C of E, they came from what was Ceylon, now known as Sri Lanka, but they left when it was Ceylon. So you had the Buddhist upbringings, the Catholics, the Christians, and everything in between. And I was brought up with a family that's very open-minded, which was a good thing considering. The other joke I think Spirit played on me, they sent me to a Catholic school, which isn't good for an emerging medium.
Yeah, that couldn't have been a fun experience.
It was an interesting experience. Luckily, I was brought up with a very tolerant family, so they weren't too bothered with my weird and wonderful ways. So as I continued on my journey doing these readings, I ended up on my own with 3 children, bringing them up on my own. I was about 27. So rather than doing the readings for fun, my friend said, why don't you do readings and charge a bit of money? And I never advertised. It all went by word of mouth. So I continued on. Now, in the town where I was living at the time, a few spiritual churches, centres. One was a church, but what started, and you're going back 30 years in this country, which is a very different setup to it now, to what it is now. Back then, with the Spiritualist National Union, the SNU, who controlled spiritualism in England at the time, you weren't allowed to mention abortion on platform. You couldn't mention suicide. You couldn't mention divorce. You could mention all these things. So how can you give a message from Spirit when you're limited on what you can say? So this centre opened up that didn't agree with that. And they didn't agree with you can't use tarot cards, you can't use this, you can't use that. Also, the SNU didn't believe in reincarnation, which I really do believe in big time.
Oh, there's major proof of reincarnation. I mean, there's major proof.
To me, it's obvious.
Ask the Indians, like the actual Indians in India, like ask them. There's so many stories that come out of that country that of reincarnation that are insane.
Well, I've got a friend, Jane Osborne. She does past life regression. I've been regressed loads of times with various lives, and then I found the research, but I'll come to that. So I started charging for readings, and then I was in this small town, this spiritual centre open that wasn't religious based, which was brilliant. And I learned loads, all about auras, chakras, energy, blah, blah, blah. Things that the church wouldn't teach you. So from there, I went to this spiritual retreat in Wales called Hafnico. It's still there, and I now go there and teach. And at the time, and it happens to anybody who's spiritual, I was a big fish in a very little pond when I was in my hometown. And I got to this spiritual retreat in Wales in the UK, and Spirit basically pulled the rug from under my feet and let me fall flat on my face. I'm like, now learn. It basically got rid of my ego then. And I learnt. I learnt about energy, I learnt about auras, I learnt about chakras, I learnt about earth energies, ley lines, ghost hunting, all sorts. Also, I'm very much into what I call the craft. People call witchcraft, I call it the craft. Very much into that now, but it's all about positive energies and helping and healing. Also, the alien energies, very much into those because the aliens are with us. They're not coming, they're here. Um, what else? Oh, God, there's loads. I'm trying to think. Um, so I've learned loads over the years. And the one thing I say now is that I would never be, I think the word's arrogant enough to tell somebody what to believe. When I give a reading or a message or I'm helping somebody, I like to give, if I'm helping somebody, I like to look at their situation and give them options. And the one that feels right is the right option for them. When I give a message from a loved one in spirit, I'm not doing it to prove life after death. I'm doing it to give you an experience, and hopefully, you will then go and discover things for yourself. I like to encourage people to explore their spirituality, whichever direction it goes in. So it doesn't matter which direction you go in, as long as you expand. I go by the pagan creed, which only has two things: do no harm, and everything you give out's coming back to you. If you live by those rules, you're not going to go wrong.
Yeah.
Um, but what's been happening was a few years ago, I'd had loads and loads and loads of experiences, you can imagine. But the one I found that really got to me, in my young years, I trained in psychology and as a counsellor and what we're calling it Britain a welfare officer to help people anything social deprivation, social problems, grieving, bereavement, everything like that. But as I was developing, I noticed the amount of people who wanted to grab onto your energy, who pretended to be your friend while stabbing you in the back, who only wanted to know you for your abilities.
Yep.
And it got bad. It got really bad. I had people, to the extent I had to get the police involved. I was getting hate mail, I was getting racial abuse, I was getting anonymous letters written about me left, right, and centre. And turned out the person who did it was one of my best friends. But I'd had loads of stuff like that. The worst one was when I call it, I got done over by a Satanist. That was fun. I didn't know she was a Satanist. She didn't come and go, hi, I'm a Satanist. She, again, this was in my formative years. I was only in my late 20s, early 30s. I was still learning. And she came along and pretended to be my friend. And there was a group of us at the time, because you have your social group who you mix with, and we're all spiritual, we're all developing. And she got involved with us all. And I didn't know it. She said she was taking me through a meditation. What she actually did was hypnotize me. And for almost a year, I ended up phoning this woman about 10, 11 o'clock every night and telling her everybody's secrets, which I didn't know I was doing. I was totally unaware of it. It was a very, very bizarre time. Some of my friends realised what was going on before me. She did it to plenty of other people. It wasn't just me. And one of the things she told me when I first met her was, I'm here to test people who cross my path. If you pass my test, the test, get past me, you will be on a magnificent spiritual journey. But I'm here to stop you doing that. And, excuse me, she did almost stop me. I'm not going to go into it because it was pretty horrendous, because she was involved in ritualistic murder. And what it turned out was I'd done a reading for her, which actually proved she'd been involved in this murder. But I didn't know, I had no idea. So she couldn't find me for 2 or 3 years because people wouldn't tell her where I was. And then she found me again and suddenly became my best friend overnight. And she started telling people I was mentally ill. She turned all my friends against me. And the worst thing was, at one point, she wanted to take my daughter and look after my daughter. This is the ritualistic murder was of a young girl as well. My daughter was only 8 or 9 at the time. And I said, no way on this earth. And luckily, some friends around me at the time realised what was going on. My aunt, who was the healer, she'd passed a spirit by then. And she came to me and she'd left me some books on hypnotherapy. And this book shot off the shelf, picked it up, and a tip, held the book in my hands, opened it, and it said, when you've been hypnotized against your will, which had happened. And I did, there was something in there that how to undo it, so I undid it. Okay. And then, because I didn't phone that woman that evening, she phoned me up, and I just said, with all that is holy, you never darken my door or cross my path again. And she went, you've passed the test. You will never hear from me again. And I never did.
Wow. Okay.
Amazing.
Multiple comments and questions on that story so far.
Right. But the following bit of it was, there's more. A year or two later, I was running development groups and starting to teach people. And there's an old chap came along with his wife to the development group. And I told them the story about being careful who you trust and about be careful if somebody says doing your meditation, it's hypnotizing you, and, just be careful. And I said there was somebody, and I said about the ritualistic murder. The bloke took me to one side afterwards and said, name the person who'd hypnotized me, so to speak, and the victim. And they said, yes, we know she was involved, but we couldn't prove it. He was the pathologist who'd done the autopsy on the murdered girl's body.
Wow. Talk about synchronicity right there.
Yeah. And some years later, I met another lady who was part of a coven. This before I was really into the craft. And she said that her coven, this murder had been on a certain time of year with certain energies. And their coven had to go down and cleanse the land where it was done as well. And that all came from me just doing a reading for a complete stranger.
Wow.
But what a journey. What scary.
Yeah.
Within that time, my accelerator cable snapped. I was coming off a motorway onto another busy road. The accelerator cable snapped, and the mechanic had a look and went, that's impossible. It could not have broken clean off where it broke. That was impossible. I was also picked up out of my bed and thrown against a wall, had clocks for poltergeist activity, psychic attack. It was quite a few horrendous years, but I survived it. And I have a lot of respect for anybody's ability with energy, but I don't fear it anymore because I've been through it. So why fear it? And fear gives it power. So
yeah, I agree with that.
So that was one major experience, but I had lots of other experiences, not as bad as that, but people trying to manipulate me, use me. And as I've gone on through it, or in a relationship with a narcissist, that was fun. I learned about energy and how people steal your energy, how they use your energy, how to protect your energy. And that was really interesting. But what happened from it all, I ended up writing a book of all these different experiences of where people want to use you. They abuse your energy, they abuse your trust. There's a lot of it around. And I call the book It's Not All Love and Light. Because, with this past 15, 20 years of spiritual awakening, it's all love and light, they're all lovely people. No, they're not. Some of them are horrible, really nasty people with strange egos. And so I ended up writing a book called It's Not All Love and Light, because spirit channeled that through me. They used to wake me up at 2, 3 in the morning, and I'd sit there with on the computer and type away, which was great fun because I'm dyslexic. So I would not know what I'd written. It'd be the next day or a few days later, I'd go and read it. And it's all based on my true experiences, but Spirit channeled it. So that book came out 6 years ago. And the strange thing with that, so all these synchronicity in my life are amazing. I didn't really push the book because Spirit just said, leave it, it'll go in its own time. So I trusted them. And there must be, I know of, at least 10 people who read my book and went, I was about to give up doing my spiritual path and I read your book and I decided to keep going. And that's 10 I know of. So
that's amazing.
I love it. I love working with Spirit. I do energy, the ley lines and energy lines on the earth. I've been doing grid healing on energy lines on the earth where you plant crystals in certain places and join them up to other energies. And I know there's groups all over the world doing the grid healing, energy healing. That I'm laughing because I had a conversation a few days ago. There was a Facebook page about stone circles, and so we said, "Oh, join that. You like that sort of thing." So I've just joined it, and you had all the spiritual people saying about the different energies from stone circles. Then you had the archaeologists going, "Oh no, it's just archaeologically interesting." Then you had, I hate to use the word, but I'm going to say muggles, who went, "You lot are crazy. It's just a stone circle." And they all started arguing over who was right. And I'm thinking, how futile is that?
Yeah,
And one person said to me, why is it? Yeah, it's not real. It's been scientifically disproven. I went, I feel it. So for me, it's real. And she was arguing with me. I thought, I'm not arguing with you. How can you argue with what you feel? You feel what you feel. It's not harming anyone. It's not controlling anyone. It's not manipulating anyone. So I just find that people seem to want to stick somebody in a box and fit into that criteria, which I don't. I will not be boxed in. I'm trying to think what else I've done. Famous people who've come through and readings, that's quite good fun. Because I never realised afterwards, but I think the best one I had when doing a reading was, it was a rocker bloke, long hair, leather jacket type chap. Really nice. Did this reading. I kept saying, I've got Mark here. And Mark said you helped his son with his guitar and playing his guitar. And he died doing a small car like a mini, it hit a tree. And I'm doing this reading, and afterwards, he said, oh, yeah, that was Mark Bolan.
I know that name.
Mark Bolan, famous guitarist, musician, T-Rex, back from the 70s.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I knew that name. I'm like, I know that name from somewhere, but
T-Rex sang Metal Guru.
Ooh, okay. I know that one.
Yeah. And he came through, and I had no idea it was him. It's a good job I didn't, because I'd have frozen in the reading. So that was a good one. What else have I had?
Well, before you go on, let me get some questions and comments in, because there's a lot to cover here.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go back to the beginning when you're talking about World War II, because I actually was just listening to a podcast the other day about Hitler using mediums and psychics during the war. Yeah. And I believe England was doing the same thing, weren't they, to kind of contradict what he did?
Now, the one story I've heard about England, so I know the Nazis, especially the SS, their headquarters was a satanic energy point. That's known, right? In England, Churchill was really pagan in his beliefs and very intuitive. And I heard from somebody who was alive at the time that he got all the covens and witches of England to put a protective energy field around England, and that's why Hitler never invaded us. Because why would he suddenly, on the brink of invasion, suddenly go to Russia? There was no logical reason for that.
Did they not drop bombs on England? I thought didn't
God,
planes...
yeah, got absolutely splattered.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I'm like,
really got bombed badly, but this energy field, it didn't stop the bombing; it stopped the invasion.
Yeah, I could see that possibly, and
It put an energy field around and diverted the energy in another direction. And
yeah,
I do believe that happened.
which I could believe it too, because I mean, it's well known that Hitler was into the occult and that he was into trying to. I mean, he tried to make werewolves for God's sake, so or dogmen, or he might even had real dogmen, because I truly believe that dogmen exist, and he might have had them. I mean, he might have found
Mhm.
some, and because I'm sure as much as there's covens of witches out there, there's also like packs of dogmen that do spend time together,
But
especially back
you've
then.
got to have the yin and yang. For every good, there's got to be the opposite.
Oh, yin and yang. Okay, sorry, the accent threw me on that one for a second, but yeah, I mean, there always has to be good and evil. I agree with that. There's always a balance, and
Mm.
I mean, I personally do not am not sensitive to anything. I always wish I was, but you know, those who want to can't ever do it. That's just the way it is. Like
Well,
you go,
I disagree with that because every single one of us has that sixth sense, right? Your sixth sense is the fight or flight. That is your first sense.
yeah,
Yeah. You think if you, you know, when you got a baby and you pretend to drop them, their arms go out automatically.
yeah,
Yeah, that's your sixth sense. Women probably have it a bit more than men because we'll wake, when the baby wakes up in the night, we will tend to wake up 2 minutes before the baby does. That's your sixth sense. Knowing who's about to phone. That's it. Or going somewhere and feeling the atmosphere and go, there's been a big row in here. Before I had that
yeah,
one. Right. That is the sixth sense. That can be expanded on. Okay. It really can be expanded on. It takes time and it takes a lot of work and dedication as well. But basically, yeah, you got your chakra, your energy points in your body. It's pushing energy through and learning to use it and breathe with it. And as you expand it, then you can reach into other dimensions, whether spirit, alien, earth, whichever dimension you want to go to. It's possible for anyone to do it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing it because I know some people who've gone in it full pelt and it's actually caused mental health issues when they don't balance the energy. But
yeah.
anything, Kim.
I wish I knew someone around my part of the world over here in Massachusetts to teach me this stuff because I would totally. I mean, I would go full Stephen Strange in that school and just study my ass off on it and work so hard to have that happen.
I've
Because
got to say, recently, because I do a lot on Facebook and we've got online mediumship services, we're getting a lot of mediums from America coming to England on these online things to develop more using the English technique of mediumship. And they're all doing it via Zoom and online. It's pretty amazing what's happened. It's all because of the lockdown.
well, of course, yeah, that
It's
opened up
really,
a lot of doors for a lot of things.
yeah, it's really good. So if you really wanted to, you could without leaving your home.
True. Might have to
Yes.
look into that because I mean, I do have spirits in my house. I know I do. I've had investigators here to look into it, and
Mhm.
I would love to be able to communicate with them, like, and find out real reasons they're here beyond using investigators,
Yeah.
divining rods, and the spirit boxes and all that.
All the
But
tools. All the
yeah,
tools.
basically, I mean, they brought in like literally a duffel bag of tools. I, but going back to your story, I mean, going back to the bad experience you had with the Satanist, I was going to ask, like at one point, was it a real Satanist or was it a wannabe Satanist who was just one of the ones who reads a church Satan book and tries to go by that?
She knew what she was doing. 100%.
Well, yeah, the way you describe it I mean, it definitely, I mean, it makes me think of the Christian idea of the devil that he's there to test you and he's there to tempt you, which that's what it made me think of. And I mean, Lord knows that whatever evil presence there is, whoever's running it, whether you want to call him a devil, Satan, Beelzebub, Hades, whatever you want to call him,
Mm-hmm.
or her. I'm not going to be
It.
sexist. It,
They.
whatever you want to call it, they always have followers and workers who they will have do their business. And
Mm.
the fact that she was able to actually put you under hypnosis that quick is it because most hypnosis, like you go to a hypnotist to try to quit smoking or quit eating fatty food, something like that. It takes months to really get you under like what they say when they say you're under even. If they
Now,
can do that, go ahead.
right, remember this. I was learning meditation. I was just really starting to get deep into it. And at that point, nobody had really told me about protecting my energy. Nobody had really taught me that people can harm your energy. So I was quite naive when I met this person. I do believe it was on my path and I was meant to meet them. I've got no doubt about that whatsoever. Um, the person and the knowledge and wisdom I have now, it had never happened to me now.
Well, of course not. I mean,
But
we all.
hindsight is a wonderful thing.
Yes, yes, it is. I mean, we've all had experiences in our young years where maybe not to that extreme, but where we meet people who don't influence our life in the best of way. And it's like a rite of passage. Everybody has to go through one friend that's going to end up stabbing them in the back at least a couple times.
I wish it was only one. I've had hundreds.
Well, being with someone with abilities like yourself, someone who's sensitive to all this, it opens the door for a lot more people who want to get into your life than just a normal person.
Well, what I say, a bright light attracts moths.
Exactly.
So the stronger your energy, the more moths and Klingons and strange people you're going to attract. But it's all part of the journey. Because one thing else I believe is that we choose our life before we were born. Okay. And a friend and I have this thing that we were absolutely drunk off our faces, probably drugged up when we chose the life because we had no idea what we were letting ourselves in for. But there is actually, on a serious note, a theory that you choose your parents, you choose your siblings, you choose the people you're going to meet. But as soon as you're born, you forget it all. Okay. But if you look at each of those and the influence they've had on you, good and bad, yeah, and where it's led you, where path, I don't believe any of it's chance. I don't think there's
No,
any
I
chance.
I agree. I am 100% huge believer in fate, and that because whenever my wife says like, "Why don't you wear your seatbelt or slow down driving?" I'm like, "If I'm fated to die today, I'm gonna die today. It's not gonna change no matter what I do." So I'm a full believer in fate. I'm a full believer that we are destined to do things from the second we're born.
I think
We
sorry.
That's okay. We may be able to influence it slightly to change a certain way, but the same thing's going to happen. It just might be different paths to that thing, and it might be a little bit different outcome than could have happened if we didn't change something. But those opportunities are rare, I think, and those are the big life moments.
I think I like the George Michael song "Different Corner" because if you'd gone left and not right, something else would have happened. If you were a minute later or a minute earlier, you'd have missed something would have happened. I think the major experiences and choices I think in life are out of our control to a degree.
Yeah,
But we
I
can
agree.
see opportunities. Doesn't mean we've got the free will to take them or not. But if we
Mm-hmm.
don't, they'll come round again. You can't. A friend of mine used to say, you've got one number on your head. You got the day two numbers: the day you're born and the day you die, or the day your body dies.
Yes.
Your spirit don't die.
No, it does not. I know that for a fact now, and I have believed in reincarnation for at least a good decade. I mean, I've been on this paranormal journey of talking to people and listening to other podcasts of talk to people for 15 years now, and listening to watching reading what I can read. It's just this is such an interesting world that I had to be a part of it, and I wanted to get other people's messages out there, get other people's experiences out there, so that more people can learn like I did. That's why I started this podcast.
Well, that's brilliant. Obviously, that's what your destiny is. You can
You
share
are
it.
this. You are the second person to tell me that.
There you go. It's your destiny. And it's going to go further yet. You wait and see.
Oh, I hope so. I'm on 5 podcasts right now as a regular, so
The one
I.
Spirit want me to ask you right now, if that's okay.
Oh, please.
Is the alien energies. Have you met them yet? Have you seen the alien energies, or people as I call them?
Interestingly enough, I had a starseed on this show about a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of my introduction to, because I knew about starseeds, I've heard the name, but I never was really introduced or able to listen to someone talk about it for a length of time. And I finally got the chance to do that. Her name is Was that Shante? Yeah, Shante Hood, I believe her name was. And she is a starseed, and there's 3 different species of aliens that she's communicated with.
Yeah.
Species of aliens I never even heard of, not the Greys, not the reptilians, like the actual names of species that
Yeah.
I never heard. I couldn't even repeat them right now if I wanted to, but
Thing is that I've probably got a bit different outlook on energies, whatever they are, earth energies, alien energies. To me, they're just spiritual beings. Their energy is the same as we are, from different dimensions, different planet, different universes. And then you've got I like the quantum physics, the time space, parallel universes, and all that sort of stuff. And I absolutely believe we can link into all sorts of different things and expand our energy. I actually find it frustrating in this country because when we do what we call platform mediumship, they go, "You are here to prove life after life." And I'm thinking, but there's so much more than that. So much more in so many different areas. Um, and I just think when I started out, if you'd mentioned aliens, people would think you were crackers.
oh
Right?
yeah,
And I'm
back
going
then of
back
course.
40 years, when you couldn't mention suicide on platform as though that never happened. Um, so the way I've been through all these years and things like this, when you can talk about aliens, you can talk about quantum physics, you can talk about earth energies. I mean, the other one I'm really interested in is spirit possession and spirit come and take people over. I'm involved with an organisation called Spiritual Crisis in Mental Health. There's a bit of a background to that. My grandmother, um, I believe she was a medium, spiritual person, but she was born before the last century, 1890, I think she was born. And as she grew up, it was a very Catholic, pronounced place she lived in.
Oh yeah,
And she was convinced she was mentally ill and it was the devil talking to her. And she was actually a medium. And she actually ended up mentally ill because I think a lot of people who are mediums and aren't believed and aren't listened to are treated for mental illness and then they do become mentally ill because they're being told what they see and feel is not true.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, a lot of them turn to drug abuse and alcohol abuse as well because
yeah.
they're trying to quiet the voices in their head because they think it's something wrong with them.
So there's a new approach to that. I did mention it in my book, but the approach is it's called Spiritual Crisis in Mental Health Network. And what they do is I think there were 2 places in England. There's a place in Brazil. You've got some in America, and they do a complete holistic approach to mental health, where they have psychology, psychiatrists, counselings, mediums, healers, and various therapists, reflexology, and all that sort of stuff. So a person is treated holistically. They have a 98% recovery rate. That's from statistics about 5 years ago. I don't know if these places still got funding because obviously it's not good for the drug companies when
Of course
somebody
not.
recovers completely. But at the moment, it's an online service, Spiritual Crisis in Mental Health Network. Um, and we get people from all over the world on that because what they're trying to do is look at mental health in a spiritual capacity. And a lot of time when people start hearing voices and seeing things, they think the schizophrenic, they're mentally ill. When actually they're having a spiritual awakening. Except where are you taught when you start seeing things and hearing voices, you automatically think you're mentally ill. And
Yeah, I mean,
you might not be. If it's a voice telling you to do harm to others, then you might be. Or you could have a nasty attachment that happens. But the Spiritual Crisis Network, basically say if you're on medication, keep the medication, but do the spiritual awareness at the same time, so you can balance them out. And I think it's a fantastic view, because if we don't have breakdowns, a breakdown is a breakthrough. It's a chance to start again. So with spirituality within that, whichever direction you're going to go in spiritually, it's just really good. Sorry, I'm going for my tangents.
Yeah, which I mean, it's interesting, and I mean, it's great work you do with that because I mean, I've heard there are ways for people to overcome addictions and all that without resorting to the medication, which is a great thing because medication is just so overpriced nowadays because the greedy need their money, and it's not healthy. Medication at the end of the day is just not healthy for the body.
I like the one, they feed us a load of rubbish and then give us medication to make us better from the rubbish they feed us.
Oh, that's very true. I mean,
Unfortunately for me, in this country they started doing processed foods when I was 14, 15, and unfortunately I got caught in that trap of the food addiction. But
yeah,
never
I could.
mind, life.
Oh, I could. I just had gastric bypass surgery at the end of March because of being in that addiction as well. So
Yeah.
I totally understand, and I now don't eat anything like I used to, but which is a good thing. But I do miss it sometimes. But
Well, I won't have gastric surgery because my aunt was the first person in our country to have gastric surgery. It took her 30 years to die from it.
really,
It was really bad. She had a wound that never healed for about 10 years. Um, I don't know how they did it. Obviously, it's updated since then. But she had no iron in her body. She had no nutrients. Her hair fell out. Her teeth fell out. It was horrendous. And my mum made me promise never to have it done, which I'm sticking to. I do have an eating disorder for many, many reasons. I'm not going to go into. But
yeah.
I'd rather manage the eating disorder, because if I have gastric surgery and don't manage the eating disorder, I could end up with a different addiction.
Oh God, yeah, God, yes, you could. I mean, I have to stop myself all the time when I want to go eat something, and like I used to, and I know I can't. I mean, I can't buy chips and dip anymore because I'll eat the whole bag in one sitting, and I know it. I can't do that, and plus, I mean, I since I've done it though, it seems like everything in my life seems to work out. Got applied for promotion at work, got it. Started podcasting majorly and started this podcast, and I'm already getting sponsors and all this, and within months, and
It's the
it's
right
just
thing for you.
yeah, it is, and I'm sure gastric bypasses have changed dramatic. I know they've changed dramatically since back then, but I mean, still, it's everybody makes their own choices, and I don't disrespect anybody for doing what they
That's
want to
that.
do.
I would never say somebody not to have it done. For me, it's not a choice.
Yep,
Not
which I can,
something I can't do. And I
I can,
respect anybody who has it done.
oh, I can understand why you wouldn't want to do it. I mean, I 100% do after that story, but it's just whatever people want to do.
Their
That's their
choice.
life. Yep.
And the other thing that's coming on in this country is we've got somebody called the Fat Friendly Doctor. Okay. And she's a qualified doctor. And she's saying a lot of the things they do for overweight, what they call obese people, I don't mean massively obese, but bigger than normal, is that you're discriminated against in care. And the body mass index was invented by somebody who works with numbers. I can never remember the name.
A mathematician.
Mathematician for American insurance companies, based on white American males aged between 35 and 55.
I can believe that. I can fully believe that.
So your BMI actually doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
So when they treat somebody differently because of their size, where if somebody was a smaller size with exactly the same condition, you get treated differently. And there's a lot of bullshit, frankly, around it. And there's a big movement in this country now going, we're not taking this anymore. We are not taking it. I should not be denied healthcare because I'm bigger than somebody, when that bigness is not a reason for not treating.
Yeah, I mean, being overweight shouldn't be treated the same as being an alcoholic who can't get a liver or a drug addict who can't get new kidneys or something like that. Like it shouldn't be treated the same way because yes, those people are having their own demons to deal with too. But being overweight is not a bad choice that we decide to make that we shouldn't have.
Yeah.
It's just kind of the way the life went most of the time.
And you've got all the genetic side to it as well.
Oh God, yes. Yeah.
Even the skinny people in my family are fat. I actually spoke. The people I do readings for is amazing. I spoke to somebody who is a geneticist. Again, she's in America. And I asked about this. Well, it's a weird story because I do past life regression. I've had past life regressions done, I should say. I don't do it. And I asked my friend who's just past life regression, would you do one on me? I want to know my DNA ancestry from a spiritual perspective. Okay, it's somewhat different. Because I've always felt, as I've developed, not always, but more recent years, that I know we've got the fat gene in our family. And when I spoke to this geneticist, I said, so if you've got a fat gene, you've got a skinny gene, you've got an addiction gene, all genetics are there. And she says, there is definitely a physical DNA that follows this common sense. And I thought, well, surely there's got to be a spiritual DNA, your ancestors and all your previous lives. There's got to be a spiritual DNA. So my friend took me on a regression with a difference, where I looked at my ancestry DNA. Okay. And they're playing with the lights in my room now, Spirit. I don't know if you saw that. And I went back to when my family were somewhere at the time, ancestors, I should say, were in Africa. So I've got African ancestry. And there was a famine. And at that point, the female DNA changed to store more fat, store more energy because of the famine. Right? So that's different. And then my weight gain happened when I was in trauma after a bereavement, and I stopped eating for about a month. And when I started eating again, everything stored 10 times more than it did before. So that to me is genetic DNA and spiritual DNA.
Interesting. I definitely may have to talk to you off camera about having that done at some point, but because I am a donor conceived person, so I actually did a real physical ancestry test to have my ancestry done, just so I could, and I actually found out who my donor was, and I've talked to him since all this, and I have a multitude of half brothers and half sisters, but I would love to know the spiritual side of my history because my ancestry on my other side is so just stories people tell that like no one's 100% sure. I mean, yes, the ancestry test showed we were European Jewish ancestry mostly, but I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know what that means because it's not Jewish religion. It's just Jewish people because they were such a big people in Europe back in the...
Basically, it's a genetic... My ancestry is hilarious because we start off in England with the Royal Stuarts in about 12 something. I don't know my history in that way. And my mum's side of the family slept their way across Europe and ended up in Africa. My dad's family started off Portugal and Germany, and both families ended up in what was Ceylon, which is now Sri Lanka. Okay,
yeah.
On my dad's, we did the family tree going back. We have actually got a family name called Goldstuker, which is a German Jewish name.
Yep.
Right. My mum's great granddad was West Indian, but came from slavery. My mum's and dad's family were Sinhalese, as is in Ceylon, but my mum's family were half British as well. So I have got such a mashed up ancestry DNA in a physical sense. Yeah. Which to me, I just think I'm a human being on planet Earth.
Well, basically.
But and all this tribal stuff of our country, their country, I think, oh, it's a load of rubbish. There's no borders when you get to spirit. Shouldn't be any here. But then the other side of it is your spiritual ancestry. So you've got genetic spiritual ancestry, so where your genetics in this life came from in your spiritual ancestry. But then you've got your past life ancestry, which might have nothing to do with your DNA spiritual ancestry. If that's not too complicated.
No, it makes 100% sense. It makes 100% sense to me, but
To anybody else that what you're on about. But I just find it fascinating. But if you want to know past life regression, there's a lady called Jane Osborne. She's in England, but she does works online and everything. She is absolutely fantastic at past life regression, but she does it in a healing form. So if you're carrying something from a past life in this life, she gets in and clears it. It's amazing what she does. I couldn't do what she does. I find it absolutely fascinating. But yeah, that's another area. So many areas of spirituality. You know, you run about the what do you call it? Like Bigfoot and Loch Ness and all those
cryptids, yeah.
Yeah. I have a theory on that, which I'm sure other people have. I think they're actually the real, but they're spirits that people are seeing. So that's why it's so hard to actually get evidence, because they're spirit and they will leave footprints, they will leave marks, but they can't find them because they're spirit.
Makes sense to me 100%. I mean, and you're not the first person I've heard say that either. I mean, a lot of people believe they're ultra terrestrial in origin, which means they come from another dimension, which you were talking about earlier. Is multiple dimensions, which I'm a huge believer in multiple dimensions. I think that's why we see shadow people, is because they're from another dimension and we're seeing just a glimpse of them in weak spots.
Yeah. And you have time slips. I've had a couple of time slips where you're suddenly somewhere and you're in a different decade or different century, and you're back again. They're brilliant.
I heard a story the other day about a couple in America in the 1940s or 50s, and they were just walking through their neighborhood, which they've done tons of times before because people didn't drive as much back then. And all of a sudden, they were down a street that they'd never seen before, and they walked down it and just saw buildings they'd never seen before, houses they'd never seen before, and they were completely confused, and they spent months combing their town with a map trying to find it again, and they couldn't find the street they were on ever.
Yeah. I had it. My most recent one was about 8 years ago. There's a city called Lincoln in England. Film The Da Vinci Code there, actually. And I used to live there. And I was driving down this very, very steep hill. And at the end of the hill, there was a road. There was all buildings. There was a road. But the road curved round. Okay. It was two-way traffic and I was coming down. And as I was coming down, the view in front of me changed. That a row of buildings weren't there. The road going across wasn't there. It just changed for a few minutes. And then I was back and I braked because there was a junction, except because it was on a curve and the council in their wisdom had tarmac the road and the giveaway lines weren't there. I went to stop in the middle of the road and managed to hit a car, which nobody was hurt. And there was a funny story about it, though, because the car spun round, hit a bank window. And when the police turned up, they said, oh, stuff the bank, they can afford the window. but when I obviously went to Crown prosecution and stuff, because I'd missed a junction, even though it wasn't my fault because there was no white lines. But when I spoke to the chap there and he said, do you know how often I hear people's stories when they've had a car crash going, I don't normally drive that route. The view changed. There was silence. There was nothing there. And then bang, the accident or whatever happens. That to me is one of those fate things that has got to happen.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I mean, I never had anything like that happen to me, unfortunately. Once again, I want to experience everything there is in this world, but I just don't experience much at all.
But things that I always say, if you want to hear from spirit directly, ask them. Ask spirit to give you the experience nicely. I mean, give you a nice experience of them, not experience them. I've had so many people, I want to know about spirit, and then somebody's pulling the covers off at 3 a.m, jumping up and down the bed. Well, I don't want to hear from spirit.
Well, it's funny because my wife comes from a house in the Bridgewater Triangle in Massachusetts. I don't know if you heard of that, but
No,
it
I don't know.
it's basically just a huge section of land that Native Americans supposedly left a curse on when the white men
Mhm.
slaughtered their tribe. Which that story's all over America,
Yeah, yeah.
but my wife used to have her blanket pulled underneath the bed while she was sleeping. It would feel like someone is sitting on her chest while she's sleeping, like a lot of crazy stuff. And yes, the house she lived on was built on a Native American burial ground, just like Poltergeist, basically, but
Yeah.
not as crazy and obvious as
Thing is,
of course.
poltergeist, I've got a theory on them as well. It's just a noisy spirit. But
Well,
you
yeah,
think of it from their perspective, right? This is when I trained as a counsellor and I've done spirit rescue work and energy clearance. So man, is counsel the spirit? Because if they're hanging around for a reason. Okay. It may be they didn't believe in life after life. It may be they're fearful of what they're going to meet because of what they've done here. I think one of the best ones I had on that side of things was oh god, my mind's just gone blank. Come back. No, mine's gone. It'll come back in a minute. Oh yeah, that the poltergeist. Um, it's basically I've had dealt with loads of them over the years. But what I do is sit them down and I say, listen, think of it from the spirit's perspective, right? You're in a house and somebody comes in and they've gone knock, knock, knock. Oh, did you hear that? Yeah, yeah, I heard it. People are going to have heard it. The spirit's going, yes, they've heard me, right? So then they'll move something. Oh, look, that just moved. Yeah, yeah, I saw that. The spirit's going, yeah, I'm here. Woo, you can hear me. You know I'm here. And then spirit gets so fed up over years of people hearing them and not talking to them, they start throwing things. They start getting angry and banging things and pushing you. But if you were somewhere desperately trying to get somebody's attention and they knew you were there and they ignored you, you'd get angry and throw things and push them and do things.
yeah. It's like being at a pharmacy or something and waiting for someone to notice you're staying there at the counter, and
Yeah.
you get more and more angry the longer it takes from to notice you. I mean,
I don't know if you've noticed over my other shoulder here. I don't
yeah,
know if you can see it. The energy shifting. There's like a shadow or something there. Not a bad one. It's just spirit standing there. They keep changing the energy on my camera.
I noticed that a few times. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I'm
didn't know if it
used
was
to it.
I didn't know if it was the connection or something messing with it, but
No,
because
it's
I
messing with it. I know what they're like.
the
They
first
play games.
the first episode of this podcast I recorded, I was
Mm.
talking about the spirits in my house, and I used their human names, and my wife told me afterwards that there was just orbs floating around me when I was doing it.
They will do. Spirit. The one thing I think one time I was going somewhere, I met this Buddhist, and I told him what he did. He went really grumpy and funny with me, and I went, "Okay, what's wrong?" He said, "You disturb the dead." I went, "Totally wrong. The dead disturb me. I
Yeah,
don't go out there searching for them. I am the laziest paranormal investigator you'll ever meet. If spirit want me to know where I am, I'm not going chasing around after them. I'm too old for that now anyway. But it's a paranormal investigation. I'm the one who sits in the office going, all right, spirit, what do you want help with? Because I look at it as some spirits come back and visit us out of love for us. That's
yeah,
the ones we give the messages from. Then spirits are so happy in a place they like to go back and visit it. Yeah. And then you get the ones. There was one experience. This was an interesting one. It was a so-called medium. I say so-called because they were an idiot. And they thought they were here to rescue all these spirits. Now, in between somebody's body physically dying and the person passing fully to the spirit world, it can happen instantaneously. It can wait to the funeral. If someone's got an issue, don't want to go, that's where rescue comes in. This person, so-called medium, makes me angry thinking about it. He was rescuing these spirits who had left the body and were waiting for the funerals and were in between the two worlds. And he didn't send them on to spirit world. He just kept them here, right? And he created havoc. And he kept going to this spiritualist church. And I kept going. And spirit said, well, no, go to that church, but take your rescue kit with you. which is the paraphernalia I use when doing a rescue on a big scale. And that night, things were going very weird. Medium couldn't link in. There was lots of noise, rattles, bangs. And at the end, I just stood up and took over. Well, I say spirit took over. And just as trying to do it, this young girl started fitting. She's epileptic. And they could not get her out of this fit. And she kept screaming, "Get the man away from me." There was no man near her.
Yeah.
So we got the ambulance scream. But one of the ambulance men was a spiritualist and understood spirit. Anyway, so we got them out, and I said to everybody, right, if you want to stay in here and help, you can. If not, stay outside. I don't want any crap. And I had to do a massive clearance. And I found out from these spirits, this idiot had been rescuing them and just left them there, and they'd got really, really pissed off with it. And that's why the energy exploded. And I work with a group of spirit. I'm not going to say who they are because they don't want me to. And I call on them to help with any mass rescue. And this was a mass rescue. There were hundreds of them. And we had to move them all over to spirit in one go. And that was an interesting one. But that's where you get people who think they know what they're doing and they don't.
Yeah.
But then
there's a lot of those in every field and everything. I mean, just people that think they know what they're doing and they don't, and they just make things worse by trying to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I learned through trial and, but the one thing I was taught from a very, very beginning is they are, well, I was taught they were people, but they are energies. Good, bad, or indifferent. And do you know, like your computer when it needs defragmenting and everything's in the wrong place?
Yeah.
And the energy gets mixed up. Or like your cupboard needs clearing out, you haven't sorted it. With energies, whether the human spirit, animal spirit, alien spirit, whatever, elemental earth energies, sometimes the energies end up in the wrong place. And it's not for us to decide where the energy needs to be. It's for us to link into the universal energy and say, can you please help put this energy where it should be? That's how I see it. There they're going again.
Yeah, I mean, it all makes sense to me. Everything you're saying makes perfect sense to me, and it's a lot of stuff I already agreed with before you said it even, but it all lines up perfectly in my head. And I was gonna ask you about something. I forget the heck it was. Oh, well, you said you don't really do paranormal investigating anymore out in the field. Did you ever do that in your younger days? Like, did you actually go to places that were supposedly haunted and try to sort things out?
Yeah, oh God, done loads of them. Absolutely loads when I was in my 20s or 30s. I think one, I was asked to come and clear a shop in a town because there was a lot of poltergeist activity going on and it was disturbing customers, and it was not a nice one. And there was two spirits there. One was a child of a young boy, about 9, 10. And the man who was haunting the place was the man who abused and murdered the boy hundreds of years earlier. The boy was too scared to move on from the cupboard where he had died because of this bully was still hanging around. So we rescued the boy first and got him out of there fast as anything. Because something, I will not take harm to children on any level.
Yeah,
that's when my nasty side comes out if I see harm to children. Believe me, stop. And then we had to get rid of this nasty man. And they was nasty. He was terrified of what would happen to him when he died. Because he was of a generation where it was all hell and damnation and you're going to burn in hell and all that nasty, horrible stuff, which isn't actually true. Same as the way you're not going to sit on God's hand either isn't true. In my view, she adds quickly.
Yeah.
And I was running around this building. He was slamming doors in my face. He was throwing ashtrays at me. It was full on. And I just got really, really, really pissed off with him. I went, you are going to stand there and you are going to listen to me. I says, and once you've listened to me, you can choose where you want to go, but you're going to listen. And I basically sat him down, so to speak, and said, what are you fearing? And he said, you're judging me. I said, I'm not judging you. I'm asking you what you're fearing. So tell me what you fear. And he said, well, I was horrible to that child and did this, that, and the other. I went, yeah. And how do you feel about that now? Because I wish I'd never done it. I says, so you regret doing it? He went, yeah. I says, well, if you could see that child now, what would you say? Because I'd say, I'm so sorry. I hurt them. I'm so sorry. And he actually started, it was a counselling session with a dead person, basically.
Yeah.
And then I had to explain to him that in spiritual perspective of mine is that when you die, you have the opportunity to learn and heal from your mistakes. Yeah. You don't have to. There's also, I think they're called purgatory, I think they call it in the Catholic faith, is where basically it's Groundhog Day. And you will go round and round in circles that's doing those same things, except you can't hurt anybody until you decide you don't want to do that anymore. Basically, same it is here with addiction. You go round and round in circles until you decide I don't want to do this.
Yeah, it's like on the TV show Supernatural when like the ghosts go in cycles in a house and they just repeat it and repeat it.
Yeah.
And they can be standing right in front of you with an axe and they still can't hurt you. Like it's just basically like a TV being stuck on a loop.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a loop energy. But then you get the ones that, like this one, he was doing the loop energy, but then we broke the link. We broke the cycle. One thing, never go on a spirit rescue job on your own. You want at least 3 of you, and 2 of you should be experienced mediums. Because when I started, this is rescue, not investigation, rescue.
Yeah.
Because I've been on some, we had a really evil one once. It was in a room, and none of us would go inside that room. We healed it from outside the room. We wouldn't go in there. I've had it where I've been places and I've ended up with scratches on me, bruises on me, where I've been followed home by spirit and they've come into my house till I need to put barriers up so they don't. But yeah, the rescue work's interesting. The nicest one, well, wasn't nice as it was absolutely very, very sad. In England on the 11th of November, we have Remembrance Day.
Yeah.
Which is for people who died in all the conflicts since World War One. And I was at one once, and I was stood there watching it, went home in my car, and I thought, considering I'm my own in this car is pretty full.
Yeah.
Okay. I must have only been mid-20s. It's when I was still learning. But this car's full. So I'm driving along Lincoln and going, okay, who's in this car with me? And it was a soldier from World War One. No, tell a lie, World War Two that time. And he said, well, we knew you could sense us there. So can you help us? I said, okay, driving on going, okay, what's going on? And he says, well, we got killed in battle, we believe, but we're not quite sure what's going on. They weren't sure they were dead. And obviously it'd been like 40, 50 years by then. And I learnt with rescue is you have to ask them who they trust, who they love, who they want to see. So I pulled over, did a bit of meditation. And they said, well, we're waiting for, no one's dismissed us. We're in our platoon and nobody's dismissed us. Okay. I said, so where was your training ground? And we went, meditated them back to their training ground, their passing out parade, and their family and loved ones were there. And their sergeant major came along and dismissed them, and they went to their loved ones and passed back to spirit. It was beautiful. It was the most beautiful one I've done.
Sounds like it. I mean, sounds like something amazing to witness.
It was absolutely amazing. And from there, it was like, I think I must have told all these other spirits, yeah, she knows what she's doing. And I must have done about 10 years of spirit rescue then. But there's a brilliant book. It's actually by 2 American authors. It's called Soul Rescuers. I don't know who it's by, but I don't think it's in print anymore. But it's called Soul Rescuers. It has a purple cover on it. And they taught me a lot about soul rescue because at the time when I was doing it, there was very, very little information about. Very little. You know. And when other people do rescuing, I teach them the same methods. You counsel them, you try and build a relationship with them before you move them on. But make sure you've got a team this side and a team spirit side who work with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just like Ghostbusters where you can go in and trap them. Like, you have to actually want to work with them and talk to them. And you can't try to. That's one thing I've learned from this podcast and multiple mediums I talk to and investigators I talk to. You can't force a spirit out of anywhere. They're not going to go anywhere they don't want to go. I mean,
I disagree with that.
Really?
Believe me, yeah. If they are creating havoc in somebody's life here, right, which they do, it's hard to do, but you can get them to move away from that situation. You can't force them into spirit, but you can get them away from that situation and keep that person safe if they are really causing havoc.
Yeah, but those have to be like the Peeves type ghosts that just wreck everything they're near. Like
No, I've
just
come across really evil ones where I've gone, no, you're not staying here, you're off, not having it. Really, it's not very often I come across them, I'll be totally honest. But I've got this really stubborn bitch face determination where I ain't having it. Simple as I'm not having it, especially if they're going anywhere near harming children. Yeah, but 9 times out of 10, I find that they're just frustrated and angry and confused. You know, however that you're perceiving them. But what I always say, the ones who don't want to move on, is you can still come back and visit, but go and have a look at this and see what it's like.
yeah.
And they do, and some come back and some don't. And
Do any of the ones that come back tell you what it was like?
yeah, the ones who come 9 times out of 10 when they come back, they went, if I knew it was that good, I wouldn't have hung around here for so many years. Because
so they come back just to say that.
yeah, they'll come back, but the way spirits get stuck here varies. It depends on what happened. It's what their story is. I had a really good one in a village near to where I live. It was a priest, and I've been invited along to this old school room, church room, in this tiny little hamlet of a village, about 10 houses. And it was the priest who'd been there in the 1900s, 1890s, 1900s. And he hated people. This priest, vicar, that one, hated people. Right? And he didn't want to move on because he'd been happy there because it was a very rural community with lots of animals. And I said to him, well, who did you love when you were here if you didn't like people? He says, well, I had my dog and my cow. I'm like, okay, a dog and a cow. He went, yeah, I loved my cow. She was my friend. I think I'm not even going to ask questions on that, but I got the cow and the dog, and he went to spirit with them. And that is going to be one of the weirdest ones I've ever done.
So you can actually, well, I'm guessing you can't communicate with animal spirits.
Well,
but
of course you can.
Really?
Yeah,
like I'm assuming they don't talk as we would, but
okay. You know when you got your pet dog?
Yeah.
And you know when that dog's not happy. You look at it and you know.
Right? I have two mastiffs. Trust me, I know.
Yeah, right. And you also know when your dog's fed up because they'll tell you. You can't. They're not talking. It's more telepathy, right? But they're a spirit energy. Everything is energy, right?
Yep.
And if you can link with energy, it doesn't matter whether it's a tree, a dog, a computer that we shout at frequently. Less so with computers, I have to say. But anything that's a living energy, you can communicate with on some level.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, like when your car won't start and you're like, come on, just start this one last time, and it all of a sudden will spark, like, and it's like, that's freaky, but thank you.
Well, how many people name the cars?
Not so many anymore, but some still do. I mean,
I've always named my cars.
I don't. I just never did that. I mean, in the 50s and 60s in America, that was a huge thing. But
no, I don't have my name. Oh, every car I've owned has had a pet name between me and the car. Yeah, and I know a lot of mediums. One thing I did was an ex-partner. He was buying a new car, so I just sat in the car and went, "Don't buy this one." Sat in the car, "Don't buy this one." Sat in the car, "Buy this one," and it lasted him a good 10 years. I don't know how I do it, but I ask Spirit, is this a good car? And they'll go, no, get out of it. When I don't listen to him, I always end up getting a rubbish car. But when I listen to him, I get good ones.
So, do you just always have spirits following you around? Like, is it a constant thing?
How can I put it? Right. You know how you live in your material world? Right now, you can see my room behind me, and this is the space you see. Yeah. Though I'm in this space, I'm also in a permanent link with spirit and there's the other energies. It's permanent, right? But how tuned in I am depends on how much energy I put out to it. So if I expand my energy, I'm more in tune with spirit and less in tune here. When I pull it in a bit, I'm more in tune here than spirit. That makes sense.
It does. It does. I mean,
right. So you open your chakras and your auras, you're more involved in other dimensions. And then it's what dimensions you want to link in because you've got your intention. So if my intention was I want to link with earth energies, yeah?
Yep.
Then my energy goes towards the earth and the earth energy comes up back. If I want to link with, I don't know, alien energies from whichever galaxy, I send my intention out. If they want to speak to me, they'll come back. If they don't want to speak to me, they won't. And vice versa. I have energies contacting me and I'm like, no, not tonight. I'm tired. Leave me alone. Come back tomorrow.
Speaking of alien energies, though, do they ever give you information about why they're here?
Strange, we had actually, me and my friends had a conversation about this recently. Basically, because we're ballsing everything up. I've got a friend who's really into a couple of friends really into the alien stuff. A few of the things that I've been told and Spirit have confirmed for me is that about starting in 2012 when the big energy shift was starting, that more alien energies have been coming to this planet for the last 15, 20, 25 years because of what's happening in the earth and this massive awakening we're having. They wanted to experience it from an earth side. So you've got a lot of alien energies in human bodies. Okay. And I have to say, my personal view is people with autism, ADHD, those sort of things have probably an element of alien DNA because they function in a different way. That's my perspective. And I've got a son with autism who I know you hear the rainbow children and the star children.
Starseeds, yeah.
Yeah, those are the ones who are the alien element. And my son is 6'7" with size 15 feet. I don't know where genetically that came from. So I'm 5 foot nothing. So yeah, having us on that tool is pretty amazing. But with the alien energies, they've been here for years, like hundreds of years. But because this is my understanding, because we are evolving as we need to as a human race, those, I hate to call them alien energies, the extraterrestrial energies, the extra energies are coming in to help us become more enlightened, become more aware, stop being so selfish looking in at this earth and the religious indoctrination we've had on this earth. Yeah. And actually start thinking, well, if there's alien energies in there, how does the church have any power then? It's to change all the dimension of our thinking and of our belief systems that we need to wake up to we're not the only things in the universe by a long shot, and to educate us and to enlighten us. They work more on telepathy. They have more knowledge and wisdom than we do, and they just want to help us. I think someone probably want to give us a good slap and tell us to stop being stupid. On like a naughty child, you do that again. But unfortunately, I believe here on the earth plane, we have many what I call first time incarnates, who is their first or second time in a human body. You see, I believe a lot of the narcissistic people, the very selfish me, myself, and I people, have only been here one or two times.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who create havoc because they're like, oh, I want all the money. I want that land. I want this. And they want to divide and rule. I've got to be in control. I'm the best person ever. And you see it in a lot of the world leaders. Because really, who in the right mind would want to run the world? Because I know I wouldn't. Yeah, trying to keep everybody happy would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
But those people who want power are often the narcissistic, what we'd call narcissistic sociopath types. But they've not been here very often. Some of them. On the other hand, and this is another one, people like Hitler, with the call the seventh time incarnates, were here for a massive purpose to change the Earth's trajectory and where we were going. Yeah. At the moment, I believe a lot of the disasters and horrible stuff that's happened on Earth, like with Russia and everything, is human beings have got to remember the value of life, and not just human life, animal life. We've got to start valuing life.
Yeah.
And not money and not possessions and not all that stuff that you can't take with you and isn't worth diddly squat.
I agree. I mean, whenever I struggle financially, I don't let it bring me down. I don't let it affect how I treat other people or other creatures. It's something you're dealing with at that moment. It will pass in time.
Yeah.
But
and the universe will provide. You've just got to ask. They'll give you an opportunity. Now, the one thing I wanted to show you, because I found this, went to the seaside with my friend, and I always like finding crystal shops. And I found this little fella in a shop. And I'll hold him up for you if you can see him under the light. Hang on, let's get him out. There, no, there we go.
yeah, okay.
That little fella, right? I love my crystal skulls. I think they're so important. There, you see him.
That is cool. That is very cool. I do like the
Right.
design of that.
He's a little alien one. And I've got two other crystal skulls that are quite bigger than this. But if you can see, this is tiny. I mean, it's on the end of my finger. It's tiny.
Yep.
The energy channeled through this is more powerful than my big ones. Okay. Now, this little chap, let's put him down. I got him about 6 months ago. And they told me at the time that I'm going through another transition. I'm going to new dimensions, new levels. And I'm like, yeah, all right, spirit, get on with it, whatever. I'm used to it now. And since that time, I felt quite a few months quite detached from the earth. And I sat back and observed. But in the last, I say 3-4 weeks, it's like the energy's come back with a vengeance. The stronger, the clearer. And how can I put it? I'm getting out of my comfort zone, not doing this, things I wouldn't normally do. Okay. Because I feel as though people just need to have the information and then go and seek for themselves what their truth is. That for me is the most important thing. When I take workshops and I teach people, I don't teach them my way of doing it. I help them discover what their way of doing things is. I help people on their path, not my path, their path.
Which is the right way to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
of course.
You've got to teach that. The only thing I teach everybody is open your chakras and open your energy and learn to control your energy field, your aura, because it's a living, breathing thing. And I wish they taught it in schools to kids how to protect your energy. Because when somebody comes in at you aggressively and it hits your energy and you feel it, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you feel the hurt, feel the pain, whatever. If you can protect your aura, then it can happen and you're going, okay then. But people take that energy on board, they get angry, and then they react.
See, I think I learned that at a young age, just naturally, because I, as a fat kid, I was made fun of my whole life, and I just let it kind of bounce off me. I never let it affect my mood. I mean, yeah, sometimes it bring me down a little, but I never let it really affect my mood in any way. I would never fight. I have never to this day physically been in a fight because of something like that, other than with my brother, but that's expected. But I mean, I never retaliated for any of this. I mean, I may have said something witty back, but I never got angry doing it. I just kind of smiled while saying it. So
yeah, but
maybe
you've naturally got it, but a lot of people haven't.
yeah, my mother always said to me she wished she had my self-esteem and my self-worth, but so maybe that is related. But
I think you're probably luckily you were born with that. I wasn't. I had to learn it. I had to learn how to protect my energy. But the more you connect with universal energy, the stronger your energy is, the more there is the need to protect it as well. So
I mean, but I was also the kid that always said to everybody that asked, like, I feel like the universe has big things in store for me. I don't know what they are, but I can sense something. Like, I'm meant to do something, and I never knew what it was, and I still to this day don't know exactly what it is. But I think in the last year or two, I started heading that direction.
well, like I said, a few years ago, I was at that retreat in Wales, and there's a labyrinth there and a stone circle of circling trees. And I remember going and you do a walking meditation through the labyrinth. And I'm just saying, Spirit, what is my purpose? And they told me. I went and sat on a hillside and cried for 2 hours. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to say what it is, but I did. When I found out what my purpose was, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. Leave me alone. I'm not interested. And then I just thought, okay, accept it. And the big gist of it is I am here to link in with whichever energies I need to link in with, not just mediumistic. And I'm here to teach and educate people. Like I say, to help them on their own path, not to help me on my path. The people have helped me. I'm here to help other people find their way and their direction. In the last 3 years, I've got a hell of a lot of suicidal people, a hell of a lot, where they want to go home, where they've had enough. And the one thing, say, anybody listening to this, the only thing with suicide is you don't get out of it. They'll just send you back to do it again. They'll just send you back to do it again. So if at all possible, get the help and support you can here, whichever it takes, and get through it this time rather than having to come back and do it again. Well, that's just
it makes sense though. That makes sense. Like, I mean, they always say if you it was always believed in the Catholic Church that if you committed suicide, you would go to hell. But
that's a load of rubbish.
Of course it is. Like most things in religion, it's just said to get people to show up to church and give you money. But what if instead though, if you commit suicide and the hell you're forced into is a cycle? Like you said earlier, the Groundhog Day effect.
Yeah, it could be. And you haven't got the opportunity to change it while you're not in the physical body. Because it was something you need to experience while you're here and to overcome. But there again, there are people who commit suicide who are meant to, and it's their path. Because you can't die for the life of you if it's not your time to go is another argument. And then I argue with myself then.
Yeah, I mean, I get that because I mean, if when we're meant to die, we're gonna. I mean, I did have one guest in this show who he had necrotitis after visiting an Asian country, or I'm sorry, a European country like Finland, or somewhere up in the north of Europe, and he got necrotitis, and he ended up getting very sick and being in a coma for he died actually and was brought back and was in a coma for weeks. But while he was in the coma, he said he was in a dark room and there was a door frame almost, but there was no door. It was just a bright light, and there was a human looking figure on the other side that you can only see like a shadow outline of. And the voice asked him, "Are you ready to come home, son, or do you want to stay here?"
Yeah.
And he said, "I want to stay here. I still have more to do." And him and I guess the voice would come back he really couldn't tell time in there, but the voice would come back every so often and just say to him like, "Are you sure?" And eventually they asked him the last time, like, "This is the last time we're going to ask, are you sure you want to stay here?" And then as soon as he said, "Yes, I do," like with affirmation, he came out of the coma.
Yeah.
And I think it was 3 weeks that passed.
Yeah.
So.
And you have that where people have traumatic experiences where it changes their perspective on life. I just think, but life's transient. Yeah, we're here for a short time, not for a good time, isn't it? That's the saying.
100%. 100%.
I just sorry.
No, go ahead.
I've just find I've realised over the years I'm lucky because I was born to an open-minded family with people who could already communicate with spirit. I was a multicultural family with a multicultural background, and as I've developed, I find a lot of others are brought up in such strict religious perspectives that it's really hard for them to break out and actually see things differently. And also, when I started was that many years ago, a lot of the younger ones coming up, they're born with more knowledge than I'll ever have. But they need people like me who've got the experience to help them learn about their energy, learn about their truth, and then they choose how to use it and how they put it into perspective and works for them in their life. But the one I'd say to anybody is developing is two rules. You don't do harm to anyone, and everything you give out's coming back tenfold.
Karma. Yep. That's
Absolute karma. And you've seen how instant karma is. But the other one I've discovered, this is one I've discovered recently, I'll say the last 5 years or so, is that when you hold on to anger and the pain and hurt somebody else has caused you, I actually believe now that stops karma happening. When you let it go out into the universe and let that energy go, then karma can find its way back where it needs to go. But while you're holding on to the anger and pain, wanting it to happen, nothing's going to happen because you're holding it. So let the energy go. And your anger and hurt ain't hurting anybody else, it's hurting you. So why should the personal situation that hurt you continue to hurt you? Let it go. It's not worth it. Be happy.
that's always been my look at life. My look at life basically is don't let other people bring you down. Don't let things bring you down. Just stay happy, stay positive. Well, to some degree, and eventually things will work out the way you want them to. But I think I'm gonna wrap this up by asking you one question I've been wanting to ask the whole time, but I wanted to save it to the end just for suspense.
Go on then.
What was the scariest experience you ever had with a spirit?
Scariest. Oh, let's pick one. The scariest, this is a weird one. The scariest I had with spirit was actually myself. I was going through a bit of a bad time. I was quite depressed, quite ill. And I had this dream, and it was so real. And I got out of my bed because someone's knocking on my bedroom door, opened the door, and I came face to face with myself. That was the freakiest, scariest thing that ever happened. To come face to face with myself. That just, at the time, that was like, what the heck is this?
So, did it actually? Did that spirit? Did yourself actually tell you anything, or try to communicate, or was it just?
I just freaked out. And next thing I know, I was awake in bed. It
So,
was. I was sort
possibly,
of in dream state, where you
yeah.
actually travel. And that my head still can't wrap itself around that one.
I mean, maybe it's just yourself trying to tell you that something needs to change, or you need to do
Yeah, it
something.
probably was, but that was to me that was the scariest. Having spirits turn up and pull your sheets off and throw things is like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I've
But
had, I've had,
that,
I've had, I've had other people say the same thing about that type of stuff. But like once you know they're there, it's not scary anymore. But
yeah, once you know them, I mean, when you have evil entities and things come up in your face, they feed off your fear. So why should I be scared of you? You're just an energy. You're not a nice energy, but you're an energy.
yep,
And your fear is the only. It's same with bullies. The only power they have is your fear.
exactly. Yeah,
But coming face to face with myself at that point was absolutely terrifying. But I was a lot younger, and I think I know there were lots of issues I needed to deal with back then. But that was the scariest thing ever.
interesting. That's I another thing I'd like to experience, but I don't know. Well, maybe I don't know if I would actually. Myself as a spirit would be pretty intimidating, I would think, but I couldn't tell you though. But all right, well, why don't you tell the listeners once again about your book, where they can find it, and where they could.
I'm trying to see if I've got a copy floating around my room somewhere. No, I should have picked. Right, my book is called "It's Not All Love and Light" by Nina Roberts. You can get it on Amazon, but that's not from me. If you want to buy the book from me, you can find me on Facebook, Nina Roberts Medium, or robertsnina@aol.com. That's Roberts, or lowercase, robertsnina@aol.com. And I'm trying to remember if there's a dot in there somewhere, because I can't remember for the life of me. I'm not very good at selling myself.
Well,
But
you can also send it to me, and I'll put it in the
yeah,
description.
I'll send it to Jeremy and put it in. I also do private one-to-one readings on Zoom, so I can do from overseas on money transfers. I don't charge much. A full reading with me, and my readings are different, I suppose. Spirit coming, I do mediumship, whatever I do. I do past, present, and possible future, because you have some free will. I do a soul path reading, which shows where you are, what's blocking you, and where you should be going. That's quite an interesting one, but that's when I do a full reading, which is £35 an hour, actually it's in dollars. And then do a mini tarot reading where you can ask questions and have a general reading for £20. So I don't know how much in dollars as well. My book in English money is £6, but when you buy it from me, I put a personal message from Spirit in the book. But I have to say, I've only got about 10 or 15 copies left. I'm waiting to hear from my printer to get some more printed up. But it's called "It's Not All Love and Light" by Nina Roberts. And you will also find me on Facebook, Nina Roberts Medium. So there you go. And if you're in England, I am running, or if anybody from the States or around the world wants to come, I'm running a spiritual retreat in Wales in September. If anyone's interested. It's all about energy and learning about your energy, that one. It should be fun. So that's me, Nina Roberts.
If I could afford it, I would probably be coming to that. But I definitely cannot afford a
I think the
transatlantic.
flight would probably cost you more than the event.
Oh, I'm sure any flight right now is ridiculous with gas prices. But
Yeah, never mind.
yeah. So, as all my listeners know, you can find everything I do on the Paranormal the New Normal Facebook group. All podcasts I do are on there. I always post anything special about my guest on there that I receive or that I can post on. And you can also find me on Twitter and Instagram as @JuggaloBastard, based on another podcast I'm on. And you can also, of course, find me on Facebook as Jeremy Bryant. And you can find me on TikTok as Paranormal the New Normal. And I will soon be doing Cryptic Crate unboxing videos. And possibly by the time this episode releases, we will have Cryptic Crate ads in the episodes, and there will be a code for people to get money off the first box. Well, not they get a free trial box, and then if they sign up for a certain subscription, they can get a free first box. So, or 50% off or something like that. I gotta look at the details again, but my listeners will know if they're into the paranormal. Cryptic Crate is an amazing thing, and I'll be telling you more about that in future episodes as well. Thank you, Nina, for coming on. I truly, truly appreciate it. It's been an amazing, eye-opening, awakening episode. Actually, the episode is going to be called "Spiritual Awakening." I'm using
my workshop's called "Spiritual Awakening."
That's kind of where I got the idea, but I mean, it kind of was that for me as well. So
yeah,
I'm going to go with that. So thank you, Nina, and thank you, listeners, for listening to another episode of Paranormal New Normal. Have a good week, or have a good half week, because you guys get bonus episodes every week almost. So I will see you guys next time.